I was sitting at my laptop in the kitchen when she came back. She looked tired and sweaty. Her hair was messy, as if she'd run her hand through it without a brush. Her blouse was damp under her arms and near her chest. Her short skirt was wrinkled, which was not like her at all. She always dressed very neatly. No wrinkles, no stains. Everything perfect. Her hair and makeup were always just right. But tonight, or rather this morning, she looked like she had rushed back and didn't have time to fix herself. She seemed surprised to find me still awake and downstairs. I think she had planned to find me asleep in bed, the bedside lamp on so she could move around carefully. But I wasn't upstairs asleep. I was here in the kitchen, sitting with my laptop. "Oh, I thought you'd be in bed by now. I told you not to wait up," she said, sounding almost sorry or maybe a little shaken. "You sound upset. Is everything okay?" "Yes, I'm fine, just tired." "I guessed you would be too." I looked at the clock. It was 12:30. Late for her, even on a night out with friends. "A bit later tonight. Everything all right?" Yes, it was a good evening." She looked tense, like she was worried. "You look tense. Almost scared. Are you sure everything's okay?" Her smile was weak, tight. She avoided looking at me, her eyes moving around the kitchen. "How were the girls? All good? Having fun?" She smiled again, but her smile seemed forced. I didn't believe her. "Yes, all great. Just having fun. Fine." She started sweating more. I noticed her hand shake a little, and she breathed unevenly. She walked to the sink and took a glass from the cupboard. She poured water slowly, trembling a bit. She held the tap tightly, like it was something solid she could lean on. "Good. Was Claire there?" "Mm-huh." She made a small sound while drinking and nodded lightly. "So, Claire was there, and Izzy, Kate, and Susie?" She put the glass down and nodded again, then wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "All there, and doing fine." She looked unsure, like she didn't know what to do next. She didn't have a backup plan, which was careless. She seemed scared. I looked at her calmly. "You look worried. Are you sure everything is okay?" Yes, it's all fine. Now can we just leave it?" "I'm tired." I was just wondering why you seem so worried. Did something happen to your car?" "I was really worried because your phone was off, and then, about 20 minutes after you left, Kate called with Susie. They were at Izzy's, waiting for Claire to come. She looked up, her face turning red. Yeah, I knew I'd be late, but I couldn't call because I was driving and I turned my phone off since we still don't have hands-free in the car." She gave me a sharp look. "So, that's my problem, right? It's my fault because you don't have hands-free in the new car you bought with your bonus. You didn't ask me or tell me about it. You just showed up in a Z4 and bragged about the big money you made now." "Well, this is odd," I said. "Kate wanted to talk to you, and I told her you were on your way. She seemed confused since you canceled plans again, like last week and the week before. So, honestly, where were you tonight?" She looked shocked and didn't seem to know what to say. Her eyes were wide, her mouth open. "You seem lost for words, so I'll guess. You were with Roger from work, the one you've been spending time with for the last month, at the first-class inn in Coningsby. You were there while I stayed home, worried sick that something might have happened to you. I checked the news. No big accidents nearby, no calls from the hospital, no police reports. So where were you really? Then you turned your phone on to come home, but I still had the Find My Phone feature on. Suddenly, there you were on the map, right in the hotel parking lot. I called. And, surprise, Roger and you had a room booked. I just put two and two together, but I want you to tell me if I'm right. You lost track of time there and had to hurry home? No time to get ready, maybe?" She dropped down on the floor near the lockers, speechless. I stood and walked past her. I went upstairs and got the 4 bags and the hold-all I'd packed for her. They had her clothes, jewelry, toiletries, hairsprays, oils, and all her personal care items. Using her spare key, I opened her car and carefully placed the bags and hold-all in the trunk. I went back in and took her 2 coats from the rack, laying them on top of her things in the car. I didn't lock it, but dropped the keys gently into the fold of her skirt as she slowly closed her legs and stood up. I packed everything for you, so you can leave now. I will see a lawyer tomorrow to get things arranged. I will send the papers to your workplace in a plain brown envelope, nothing unusual. Please read it, sign it, and send it back to the lawyer. I suggest you get a lawyer too, especially if you want to disagree with it. I'll leave it to you to tell your parents. They should know. Thank you for the last 18 years. It has been amazing until now. But it's over. Goodbye, Julia. I wish you the best for the rest of your life. I helped her up and took her to the car. I guess you rented a room for the night, so you'll have somewhere to sleep. Maybe Roger is still there resting. I'm sure he'll be happy to see you unless his wife is expecting him home tonight. You might want to take a few days off after you get the papers, so you can sort things out. I left her sitting in her car, locked it, and went to bed. I slept well, even though I didn't hear her leave. Her car was gone in the morning. She sat there in the driveway. The car's engine was off. The keys lay on her skirt. The cold night air came through the soft car roof and touched her skin. Julia's chest rose and fell with deep breaths. Her hands held the steering wheel so hard her knuckles looked pale. She stared at the house's front door. The door was locked. Inside, he was walking up the stairs, going to bed as if nothing had happened. "You stupid, proud man," she whispered to the quiet car. Her voice was rough and trembling. "You think you can just pack my bags and send me away? You think it's the end? You think you have all the power because you found the GPS?" She wiped her face, smudging her makeup. She felt cold and uncomfortable sitting there. The feeling inside was worse, panic tightening in her throat. She didn't have a plan. She had no answers for the proof he showed her. He had sat calm in the kitchen while she fell apart, watching her make mistakes without saying a word. "Fine. Forget you then," she said quietly, putting the keys in the ignition. The engine started loudly. "I don't need this. I don't want your small house or your lectures. I have Roger. He cares about me. He knows how to treat someone who works hard." She put the car in reverse, the wheels scraping on the gravel, and drove off into the dark street. She drove fast, pressing hard on the gas pedal as she headed back toward Coningsby in the Z4. The heater was on full blast, warm against her legs, but she still felt cold and shaky. She just needed to get to the first-class inn. Roger had reserved the room for the whole night. He would be there, probably resting in the big king-sized bed, waiting for her. She planned to walk in, take a long hot shower to wash away the bad feelings from the night, and then lie down next to him. Tomorrow, Roger would contact his expensive lawyers. Roger was an important boss. He handled tough problems every day. He would know how to deal with her husband and keep her safe during the divorce. About 20 minutes later, she arrived at the hotel parking lot. She grabbed her purse, didn't even check her messy hair, and walked straight through the sliding glass doors into the lobby. The night manager, a young man who stood with bad posture, looked up from his computer. "I need a spare key for room 412, Julia said sharply, trying to sound confident like she did at work. "My partner is there. I left my key inside by mistake." The manager pressed some keys on his keyboard and frowned. "Room 412? I'm sorry, ma'am, but Mr. Adams checked out about 40 minutes ago." Julia stopped, feeling the warm feeling from the car disappear. "Checked out? That can't be. We booked the room for the whole night. Check again. You must be wrong." "I'm not wrong, ma'am," the manager said with a flat voice, clearly not impressed by her tone. He came down, gave back the key cards, and paid the bill. "The room is empty now and waiting for cleaning." "Where did he go?" Julia's voice got higher and wavered a little. "I don't know. He didn't tell me where he was going. Now, if you're not booking a room, I'll have to ask you to speak more quietly." Julia stepped back from the desk. Her hands were shaking again. She fumbled through her purse and pulled out her phone. She turned it on. Several missed calls from Kate and Susie appeared, but she ignored them and looked at her messages. There was one new text from Roger. She opened it. "My wife asked about a charge from the first-class inn on our joint account. I told her it was a work booking, but she is very suspicious. I am going home now to take care of this. Please do not contact me again. Forget my number. We are finished." Julia stared at the screen. She read the words 3 times. They did not change. "No," she whispered, typing quickly with her thumbs. Roger, you can't do this. He knows. My husband knows everything. He kicked me out. All my bags are in my car. You need to pay for a room for me. Please answer. She sent the message. It failed to go through. She tried again. He failed to follow through. He had blocked her number. The truth hit her hard, like a punch in the stomach. She wasn't his partner. She wasn't equal to him. She was just someone he used when it suited him, a temporary convenience in cheap hotel rooms. The moment his rich wife got suspicious over a credit card bill, he pushed her aside to protect his money. He didn't care that she had nowhere to live. He didn't care that she was sitting in a lobby, looking lost and discarded. What mattered most to him was his fortune. She left the lobby and stepped into the cold parking lot. She opened the driver's door of the car and sank into the seat. Wrapping her coat tight around her, she felt cold settle deep into her bones. She was locked out of her home. She was blocked by the only person she trusted. There was nowhere else to go. She rested her head on the steering wheel and shivered as the temperature dropped. Around her were 4 packed bags, everything she owned, all reminders of her broken life. The next morning, I woke up at 7 feeling surprisingly rested. I went into the bathroom and took a long, hot shower. I shaved carefully and dressed in a sharp gray suit. Downstairs, the kitchen floor was clean. The glass she used to drink water sat near the sink. I picked it up, put it in the dishwasher, and made myself a black coffee. At exactly 9, I sat in the leather chair opposite David Sterling. Sterling was one of the toughest family law lawyers in the city. He didn't waste time with sympathy or soft words. He worked like a surgeon, cutting out problems without hesitation. That's why I had hired him 3 weeks ago when I first suspected the affair. So, the confrontation happened last night, Sterling said, leaning back, tapping a silver pen on his legal pad. It did, I replied. She didn't say anything, but her body told the story. I packed her things, put them in her car, and told her to leave. She drove off. I haven't heard from her since. Good, Sterling nodded. No yelling? No physical contact? No breaking things in anger? None, I replied calmly. I showed her the timeline, the GPS data, and the hotel bills. She collapsed on the floor. I walked past her and packed her bags. Perfect, Sterling said, a rare small smile on his face. In these cases, the guilty person tries to make you react. They want you to shout or get angry. The moment you lose control, they play the scared victim. By staying calm and distant, you take away their defense. Now let's move on to handling the finances. Did you bring the data? I reached into my briefcase and put a thick, neat folder on his desk. Then I added a small USB drive. Everything is here, I said. For the last 2 weeks, I quietly checked all our financial records. I have 3 years of bank statements, credit card bills, and investment reports. Before coming here this morning, I logged into our shared account. I added up the total money down to the last penny, split it in half, and moved my 50% into a private account under my name. I left her exactly her half. Not a cent more, not a cent less. Sterling opened the folder and quickly looked over the first pages. Smart move, he said. By giving her exactly 50%, no judge can say you are trying to starve her or take her money unfairly. You are just protecting what is legally yours before she can empty the account to pay her own lawyer. I also took her off as an authorized user on all my personal credit cards, I added. Her cards are her own problem now. I won't pay for any debt she built up. Let me tell you how the next few weeks will go, Sterling said, putting his pen down and leaning forward. Right now, your wife is in shock. In a day, that shock will turn into anger. She will see herself as the victim. She will try to change the story. She will tell her friends, family, and anyone who will listen that you are paranoid, controlling, and emotionally cruel. I expect no less, I said. Sterling's voice became serious. When she sees she only has half the money and her credit cards are maxed out, she will panic. People caught cheating without a backup plan often do risky things. Have you secured the house? I changed the locks on the front and back doors at 6 this morning before coming here. But more important, she doesn't know about the security system. Sterling raised his eyebrows. Explain. 3 years ago, there were several break-ins in our neighborhood, I said, keeping my voice calm. I put in high-quality cameras at the front door, back patio, and inside the main hallway leading to the kitchen. They record in clear detail with sound. The videos don't save on any box in the house. They go straight to a secure cloud server that I control from my laptop. She forgot all about them because the cameras are hidden inside the smoke detectors and doorbell. She never paid attention to the tech. Sterling looked at me for a long moment, then gave a quiet laugh. Don't tell anyone about those cameras. Don't mention them to her lawyer. Don't write about them in any emails. If she tries to say she left the house because she was forced, or if she pretends there was a fight when she comes back to the house, the cloud data will be our proof. We let her lie in her statement. We let her give false evidence. Then we show the judge the footage and watch what happens. That's exactly the plan, I said. Prepare the divorce papers. Say it's because of differences we can't fix, but keep the proof of cheating for the money talks. I want her served at work by Tuesday. The small inside of the Z4 smelled like old sweat and cheap coffee. Julia sat in a parking lot in front of some shops, her eyes red, her phone pressed to her ear. It was 1 p.m. She had spent all morning crying in the car, trying again and again to call Roger, but only got the voicemail that said she was blocked for good. Despair had finally beaten her pride. If Roger wasn't going to help her, she needed her friends. She needed someone to tell her it was not her fault, that her husband was wrong to throw her out. She called Kate's number. Kate was the leader of their group, a smart, successful woman who hated bad men. If Julia could get Kate on her side, the others, Susie, Claire, and Izzy, would follow. The phone rang 4 times. Finally, Kate answered. Hello? Kate's voice sounded cold and far away. Kate. Oh my God. Thank you for answering, Julia said, her voice shaking and forced. She leaned her head back against the seat, acting the part. It's been terrible. I'm stuck in my car. I have nowhere to go. My husband lost control last night. He threw me out. He packed my things and kicked me out of our house. I think he's losing his mind, Kate. He's acting strange. Took all the money from my accounts. He's controlling me. Julia, stop. Kate's voice was sharp and full of anger. It cut through the phone like a knife. Julia stopped crying. Excuse me? Julia whispered. I said stop talking, Kate said, her tone full of cold disgust. Just be quiet for 10 seconds and listen. Don't act like you're scared or being treated badly. Don't try to fool me with your fake crying. You're not sad because you're scared. You're upset because you got caught and you don't have a plan. Julia's heart pounded in her chest. Kate, what do you mean? I didn't do anything. He's crazy. I told you to be quiet, Kate snapped. Do you think we are fools? You think you can keep lying to us every week, saying you're busy at work, when really you're staying at a cheap hotel with your married boss? Julia's breath caught. The air in the car felt heavy and hard to breathe. How do you... Kate laughed, but it was a cold, bitter sound. How do I know? Because your husband doesn't waste time with games, Julia. He didn't call us crying or yelling. 10 minutes ago, I got an email from him. Susie and Claire and Izzy got it too. Do you want to hear what it said? I'll read it to you, word for word, you liar. Julia sat frozen. The phone stuck to her ear, unable to move. The message said, Hi, Kate. Sorry for the sudden message. As you know, Julia has missed your Friday dinners for the past month. Attached is a GPS log showing she was parked at the first-class inn in Coningsby during each missed dinner. Also attached is a receipt proving she shared a room with her boss, Roger Adams. I talked to her last night, and we are now getting a divorce. I'm sending you this because I know she will try to lie about why I asked her to leave. Please don't get involved. I wish you all the best. Kate paused, letting silence fill the space. He has proof, Julia, she said in a quiet, bitter voice. Maps? Hotel bills? We all saw it. You sat at my table 3 weeks ago, drinking my wine, looking me straight in the eye, and saying your husband wasn't ambitious enough anymore. Meanwhile, you skipped our dinners to stay with a senior executive in a 3-star hotel. You are disgusting. You lie without shame, and you're so careless you didn't even know he was tracking you. Kate, please. You have to understand it wasn't like that, Julia pleaded, her fake tears gone, replaced by real fear. My husband is too controlling. Roger he listened to me. I made a mistake, but I'm your friend. You can't just leave me like this. I am not your friend, Kate said sharply. I'm a woman who hates cheaters and people who break up homes. Don't call me again. Don't text Susie or Claire. If I see your car near my house, I'll call the police. Have a good life, Julia. Try not to get stuck with that new BMW of yours. Then Kate hung up. Julia pulled the phone away, her mouth open, frozen in shock. The quiet in the car felt so heavy it was almost loud. She was completely alone. Her husband didn't just leave her. He had carefully cut her off from everyone she knew with a single, well-planned email. He didn't argue or fight. He just showed the truth clearly and walked away, letting it speak for itself. She threw her phone against the dashboard and screamed as loud as she could. Then she hit the steering wheel until her hands hurt. The house was very quiet. I sat at my laptop in the kitchen, the same place where I had talked with Julia 2 nights before. A glass of old bourbon was beside my mousepad. I was looking through the money records for the Z4 car. When Julia brought the car home a few months ago, she bragged a lot. She said she had earned a big bonus for changing a contract at work. She acted proud and showed off the car keys in the kitchen like they were a prize. I didn't doubt her back then. Now, using my skill in checking money records, I saw strange things. I opened her pay slips from the company site since I still knew the login. I checked the dates of money going into the bank. The numbers didn't add up. Usual work bonuses are taxed heavily before the money reaches the account, but £40,000 had been deposited just before she bought the car, and that money did not come through the regular payroll. It came from a small company controlled by Roger Adams' department. I leaned back, taking a slow drink of bourbon. The warmth spread through me. Then a sharp thought came clearly. Roger wasn't just having a secret relationship with Julia. He had been sending company money to her, hiding it as a payment for a business service. He had taken money without permission and put it in her account so she could buy a fancy car. They broke company rules. Even worse, they broke tax rules, because that money was never reported to the tax office. Roger thought he was safe. He had a rich wife and a strong legal agreement before marriage. He thought he could simply cut Julia off, block her calls, and go back to his easy life with no problems. He was very wrong. I closed the spreadsheet and opened a new browser tab. I searched for Eleanor Adams. Eleanor wasn't just Roger's wife. She was the daughter of the company's first owner. She sat on the board of directors and owned many shares. Roger was only important because he married into her family's business empire. I found the name of the law firm that managed Eleanor's private family trust. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I entered a shiny, glass-walled meeting room in the heart of the business district. Sitting on the other side of the long wooden table was Eleanor Adams, with her main lawyer beside her. Eleanor was a striking woman, in her late 40s. She wore a neat navy jacket and sat very straight. She looked wealthy, strong, and very serious. She did not seem like someone who put up with nonsense. "Mr. Sterling," Eleanor said, first looking at my lawyer next to me, then turning her cold eyes toward me. "Your lawyer contacted my team this morning saying you have urgent, very private information about my husband's actions in my company. You have 10 minutes to explain why you needed this private meeting." I didn't waste time with small talk. I opened my briefcase and took out one folder. I slid it across the table until it stopped right in front of her. "Mrs. Adams," I said, my voice calm and respectful but clear. "Inside this folder are GPS records, hotel bills, and photos that show your husband, Roger Adams, has been meeting with my wife, Julia, over the past month at the first-class inn in Coningsby." Eleanor did not change her face. She stayed calm and showed no surprise. Her lawyer opened the folder, looked through the papers, and quietly passed them to her. She carefully looked at the hotel bills, checking the dates. "I see," Eleanor said quietly. Her voice was calm, but there was a sharp light in her eyes. "Are you here to ask for money? To keep this out of the news?" "No," I said right away. "I have already started divorce papers against my wife. I don't want your money. I want something that will help both of us." Eleanor folded her arms. "Explain." "I know," I said, leaning a little forward, "that in families like yours, marriages are strongly protected by legal agreements. I guess you have a solid prenup with your husband, and I guess that agreement says strict rules about cheating. Eleanor's lawyer cleared his throat, but she raised her hand to stop him. "It does," she said coldly. "If I can prove cheating in court, Roger loses everything. No money, no shares, no property. He's cut off from the family's wealth. Then the proof in this folder is my gift to you," I said. "You now have clear, recorded evidence to use that rule and take away his money. But that is just the start." I reached into my briefcase and took out a second folder, much thicker than the first. "My wife recently bought a BMW Z4, I said, setting the second folder on the table. "She said the money was a company bonus, but when I checked our joint accounts, I saw that the $40,000 never came through payroll. Instead, it was sent straight to her account from a smaller company that Roger controlled. He was taking your company's money to pay for his secret relationship, and neither of them had told the tax office a thing." The room suddenly felt much colder. Eleanor's face tightened. For a moment, the calm and noble look she always showed disappeared, showing the real anger of a woman whose work was being stolen right under her eyes. "He approved fake payments," Eleanor said quietly, her voice sharp and serious. She looked at her lawyer. "I want a complete and secret financial check of his whole department right away. Don't tell Human Resources or the board. Bring in the outside experts. I want every email, every money transfer, and every contract he touched in the last 2 years looked at and studied." She looked back at me. I could see respect in her eyes. "You didn't have to tell me this," Eleanor said. "You could have just used it to hurt your wife in your divorce." "My wife is already hurting," I said simply. "But I don't want proud men to get away with the mess they make. When the audit is done, I want to see the exact proof that the money that went to my wife was stolen." "Why?" Eleanor asked, tilting her head. "Because," I said, with a serious smile that wasn't happy at all, "when my wife sees she won't get anything in this divorce, she will fight back. I want the tax fraud file ready right at the mediation table. She needs to know that if she doesn't give me everything, she could end up in serious trouble." Eleanor looked at me without a word. Then slowly, a sharp smile appeared on her face. "Mr. Sterling," Eleanor said, not looking away, "your client is an interesting man. You have a deal. My legal team will let you see the audit results without limits. But in return, you must agree to confirm those hotel bills if Roger tries to fight the prenup." "Of course," I said, getting up and buttoning my jacket. "One more thing," Eleanor said as I headed for the door. "What is your wife's job status right now?" "She's still in shock and not working," I said. "But she still technically works for your husband." "Not for long," Eleanor said softly, tapping her fingers on a folder. "When trapped, people turn on each other. I'm going to put pressure on my husband's department. Let's see how long it takes for him to sacrifice his own wife to save himself." I nodded quietly and left the boardroom. The battle was not just starting. I had just given a powerful woman the chance to destroy them both. The glass doors of the company building closed behind Roger Adams with a soft sound. He walked across the shiny marble floor in the lobby. His leather shoes made a steady, proud noise. He acted like he owned everything. He was a top manager. He wore an expensive, custom-made suit. He was married to the founder's daughter. To him, the affair with Julia was already over and forgotten, like trash. He thought she was a problem he cut out of his life. He stepped into the private elevator and used his key card. He thought today would be normal. He planned to check business reports, have lunch at his private club, and buy Eleanor a very expensive gift to calm any doubts she might have about recent expenses. The elevator stopped on the top floor. Roger left and walked to his big office. His assistant, a sharp woman named Sarah, stood up right away. Her face looked pale. She did not say good morning like usual. "Mr. Adams," Sarah said quietly, almost like a whisper. "There is a group of outside auditors in the server room on the 4th floor. They got here at 6 this morning. Ite told me they have completely locked our department's shared files. They are copying every email, vendor bill, and bank transfer from the last 2 years." Roger froze. His face went pale so fast he felt dizzy and sick. "Who said they could do this?" Roger asked, his voice shaking a little, the calm businessman suddenly showing fear. "I am head of this department. No outside audit happens without my permission." "It came from the board, sir," Sarah said while looking down. More exactly, it was approved by Eleanor Adams's private trust. We can't use the system at all. Roger said nothing. He walked into his office, closed the heavy wooden door, and locked it. He leaned against the door, breathing hard, his hands suddenly sweaty and cold. Eleanor. His high-class, strict, and unforgiving wife had started an audit of his department. She did not believe his story about the hotel bills. She was searching for something, and if she brought in outside auditors, it meant she wanted to find much more than just receipts. She was looking for signs of money problems. They were going to find the fake company. They were going to find the strange vendor payments. They were going to find the £40,000 transfer he had sent to Julia's account so she could buy her shiny new car. His desk phone rang. He jumped, his heart beating fast. He ignored it. Then his private phone buzzed in his pocket. It was from an unknown number. He answered, his hand shaking a little. "Who is this?" "You cowardly, selfish jerk." It was Julia. Her voice sounded rough and upset. She seemed very upset. "Julia, I told you not to call me again," Roger said quietly, walking back and forth and wiping sweat from his forehead. "How did you get this number?" "I bought a cheap phone with the last 20 pounds in my wallet, you arrogant idiot!" Julia shouted loud enough for others to hear. Roger had to pull the phone away from his ear. "My husband locked me out. My credit cards won't work. I have been sleeping in my car for 3 days. I am cold and feel awful, and I need money. I need a £50,000 payment for a divorce lawyer by tomorrow morning, or I'm doomed." "Are you crazy?" Roger shouted back, panic making him angry. "I am not giving you any money. Do you know what's happening right now? My wife just started a full audit of my department. They are checking all the data right now. If they find that payment I made for your car, we could both be in big trouble for fraud. You need to be quiet, stay out of this, and stay away from me." "No. You listen to me, Roger." Julia's voice changed to a low, angry tone filled with fear. "You're not going to leave me alone with this. You made me take that money. You signed the papers. If you don't send me £50,000 today, I will go straight to the board of directors. I will tell them everything. I will tell Eleanor. I will show them the messages where you bragged about hiding company money to pay for our hotel rooms. I will ruin everything for you." Roger stopped pacing. He stood still in the middle of the room. Silence lasted for 10 long seconds. "Fine," Roger said calmly. The panic in his voice was gone. It was now cold and controlled. "Fine, Julia. You're right. I lost my temper. I'm sorry. I have an offshore account the auditors can't reach. Come to the office tomorrow morning at 9. Go straight to HR to pick up your new security badge. I will meet you there with a check. Just stay quiet until then." 9 o'clock, Julia said sharply. "If you aren't there, Roger, I swear I will end you." She hung up. Roger slowly put down the phone. He looked at his reflection in the window overlooking the city. His tie was a little crooked. He touched it and fixed it. His hands were steady now. He knew what he had to do. When a ship is sinking, you don't try to fix the hole right away. You find the heaviest thing on board, tie it to the anchor, and throw it into the sea. That buys you some time. Julia was the heavy thing. Roger went to his desk and turned on his private laptop, the one the auditors had not checked. He started to type. He needed to make a story. He would create false digital proof that showed he was tricked by a bad worker who had forced him to approve fake payments. Tomorrow, when Julia came in, she would not leave with any money. She would walk into a very bad situation. Julia entered the revolving glass doors of the company lobby at 8:55 a.m. She looked terrible even though she tried to hide it. Her skirt was wrinkled and her blouse was still damp from a few days ago. She had sprayed cheap perfume many times in a bathroom to cover up the smell of sweat. Her eyes were red and there were dark circles under them. Her hands shook so much, she kept them deep in her coat pockets. She walked to the security gate and tapped her ID card on the scanner. The light turned red. A loud beep sounded. She frowned and tapped again. Red light. Beep again. "Excuse me, miss." A large hand touched her shoulder. Julia jumped and turned around. 2 big security guards in black suits stood behind her. Their faces were blank, no friendly smiles like they usually showed to important workers. "My card is not working," Julia said, trying to laugh, but it sounded weak. "Maybe it's just a system problem. I have a meeting with Roger Adams." Mr. Adams is not available, the lead guard said in a firm voice. Your badge has been canceled. You must come with us now to the Human Resources office on the second floor. Do not make trouble. Julia's stomach dropped. The hard truth shook her like a tightrope around her neck. What? No, you don't understand. Roger told me to. Walk, madam, the guard said, grabbing her arm tightly. They took her away from the turnstiles, skipping the elevators, and made her go up a private stairwell. They led her down a clean, windowless hall and pushed her into a small, bright conference room. At the table sat the Director of Human Resources, a serious woman with thick glasses, and a man in a sharp, dark suit who smelled of business matters. Roger was nowhere to be seen. Sit down, Julia, the HR director said, pointing to a single plastic chair across the table. Julia fell into the chair. Her knees could not hold her up anymore. Where is Roger? She whispered, her voice shaking. He told me to come here. He owes me money. The man in the suit leaned forward, his fingers together on the table. He looked at her not like a person, but like a problem to fix. Roger Adams is currently on a leave of absence for his health, he said carefully. Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Adams came here very upset. He filed a formal complaint against you. He says you acted very unprofessionally, made unwanted advances, and pressured him for money. Julia's mouth dropped open. Her mind stopped working. He accused me? Of what? She asked. The HR director opened a large, heavy folder. Mr. Adams told the board that you started an unwanted relationship with him. When he tried to stop it to protect his marriage, he says you threatened to make false claims against him unless he sent £40,000 to your personal bank account. That is a lie, Julia shouted, slamming her palms on the table. The sudden move made her feel weak and dizzy. That is a fake, terrible lie. He came on to me. He paid for the hotel rooms. He sent the money because he wanted to hide the affair. He is the one who took the money. We have the emails, Julia, the HR director said, without reacting to her outburst. She slid 3 printed pages across the table. Julia looked at them. They were emails sent from her work account to Roger's private email. The words were clear and not in her favor. Roger, if you don't approve the bonus by Friday, I will go straight to Eleanor. You know what I will say? Pay up, or your marriage is finished. Don't ignore me in the hallway, Roger. The price just went up. Approve the transfer. Julia's hands began to shake so much the papers blurred. I didn't write these. He had my computer. He knew my password. He set this up to blame me because the auditors are here, Julia said, her voice shaking. That's a very easy excuse for someone trying to get out of trouble, the lawyer said, with a cold smile, leaning back in his chair. The data shows these emails came from your computer. The story is clear. You got close to a senior worker, used his weakness to take money from the company, and then bothered him when he wanted no more contact. What you did is serious fraud and extortion. You can't do this, Julia shouted, tears falling down her face. He's using you. He's blaming me to protect himself. Call him, bring him here now, and make him look at me. Mr. Adams is fully protected under our rules for whistleblowers and victims, the HR director said softly, closing the folder firmly. Starting now, you are suspended without pay until the Serious Fraud Office finishes its investigation. You no longer have access to the building, your email, or any company accounts. If you try to contact Mr. Adams, his wife, or anyone on the board, the company will get a restraining order and have you arrested for corporate spying. The lawyer stood up, straightening his jacket. You have no power here, Julia. You broke the rules and got caught taking money. I suggest you spend whatever money you have left to hire a good criminal lawyer. You'll need one. 2 security guards stepped forward and took Julia by the arms, pulling her out of the chair. She didn't fight. Her body went loose as they led her out of the room, down the back stairs and out through the rear exit. They pushed her into the cold morning air. Do not come back here, one guard said, shutting the heavy door behind her with a loud slam. Julia stood in the alley by a line of trash bins. She felt completely ruined. No job, no money coming in, and a serious investigation with the risk of many years in prison hanging over her. Roger had played her like a trap was set for a fly, with cruel ease. She slowly sank down to the wet ground, hugging her knees and crying so hard that she gasped into the gutter. She had nothing left, and when someone who always thinks of themselves loses everything, they can become very dangerous. The clock on the car's dashboard read 7:45 p.m. Julia was parked at the end of the street looking through the rain-covered windshield at her old home. The kitchen lights were on. She could see the shape of her husband moving quietly through the house, calm and sure, living the life he had taken from her. She held the steering wheel tight, her nails digging into the leather. Her mind was full of anger and worry. She had spent the past 8 hours in a public library, using the free internet to search desperately for any way out. She had found something in a hidden divorce forum. They called it the silver bullet. In the UK family court, if one person files a police report saying they are scared and in danger at home, the court acts quickly. They can order the other person to leave the house, change the locks, and give the home to the one who needs protection. Also, the court could freeze the money of the person accused and make them pay the other person's legal fees while the case goes on. It was a harsh, unfair trick, but Julia was ready to use it. She didn't care about right or wrong anymore. Her husband had hurt her deeply. Roger had set her up. She was close to losing everything. If she went down, she would pull him down with her. She wanted the house back tonight. She wanted him gone. She wanted him to pay for the lawyer she needed. She watched the house closely. At exactly 8 p.m., just like every Thursday, the front door opened. Her husband came out carrying a black bag and went to put it in the bins by the driveway. This was her chance. Julia opened the car door and ran through the cold rain. She stayed quiet until she was halfway up the driveway, as he tossed the bag in the bin and turned toward the open front door. Julia ran forward. She pushed past him with the fierce energy of someone trapped, stepped inside, and felt the warm light of the hallway. "What are you doing?" he said, his voice flat, calm, with no surprise or fear. He stepped inside and closed the door behind her. He didn't try to stop her or raise his voice. He just put his hands in his pockets and looked at her. She looked wild. Her clothes were dirty, her hair wet and stuck to her head, her eyes wide and full of anger. "I'm taking my house back, you arrogant man!" Julia shouted, her voice loud in the tall, quiet space. "You think you're so smart? Do you really think you can just press a button on a computer and erase 18 years of my life? Do you think you can take my money and leave me alone in that car?" I said nothing. I only watched her. My silence made her angrier. It always did. "Say something," she shouted, walking into the kitchen. "Argue with me! Yell at me! Call me names, you coward!" She grabbed a heavy fruit bowl from the counter and threw it to the floor. It broke into many sharp pieces, making a loud noise in the house. I didn't move. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching her. "You did this to me?" Julia yelled, her chest rising and falling fast. She started to breathe quickly. "You ruined my life! Roger fired me. He blamed me for the money. I have nothing, and it is all your fault for checking the GPS." She pulled the collar of her blouse down hard, ripping the buttons off, showing her collarbone and part of her top underneath. Then, she hit the edge of the kitchen counter with her right arm. She gasped and stepped back. Then, she hit the same spot with her left arm. A dark mark quickly formed there. She looked at her arms and then at me. A twisted smile came through her tears and sweat. "I'm going to ruin you," she whispered, her voice low and full of hate. "I will tell the police that you forced me inside. I will say you broke the bowl, tore my clothes, and hurt my arms, because you were mad about the other woman. You will be arrested for hurting me. You will lose this house, and you will spend time in jail." She took her phone out and called emergency services. She put it on speaker so I could hear the operator. "Emergency? Which service do you need?" said the voice. Julia dropped to her knees on the kitchen floor, surrounded by broken pieces, and gave a loud scream that sounded very fake. "Police! Please help me!" she cried into the phone, sounding scared. "My husband! He forced me into the house. He's going crazy. He found out I was leaving him, and he's ruining the kitchen. He pushed me against the counter. He's hurting me. Please. I'm scared for my life. You must send someone now." "Stay on the line, ma'am. Officers are on their way," the operator said quickly. "Is he still in the room with you? Does he have a weapon?" "He's just standing there, looking at me. Please, hurry, Julia cried. She hung up the phone and looked at me from the floor. Her chest was rising and falling fast. A crooked smile came back to her lips. Checkmate, you arrogant fool. Get your coat. You're leaving in handcuffs. I stood still for a moment, my hands in my pockets. The kitchen was very quiet. The only sounds were rain hitting the windows and her heavy breathing. I didn't shout or panic. I just looked at the woman I had been married to for 18 years and saw how deep her lies and tricks went. You really should have looked up when you walked down the hall, Julia, I said quietly, almost bored. I turned and walked to the living room. I sat down on the leather sofa and waited for the police. About 10 minutes later, blue flashing lights shone through the living room windows. Shadows jumped across the walls. Loud banging on the front door started right away. Police! Open the door! I stood up, walked to the hallway, and unlocked the door. 2 officers rushed inside at once. The first was a tall, strong man with a serious face. He quickly took off his baton. His partner, a woman officer, moved past me, her hand on her radio. Keep your hands where I can see them. Step back into the living room right now, the first officer said firmly, pointing at my chest. I did what he said, raising my hands and taking slow steps back. I have no weapons, officers. I am following your orders. Suddenly, Julia came crawling out of the kitchen on her hands and knees. It was clear she was acting. She was crying loudly, her blouse loose on her shoulder, her hair messy. She held out her arms, shaking as if very scared. The woman officer quickly knelt beside her and put an arm around her. It's okay, sweetheart. We've got you. You're safe now. Who hurt you? He did, Julia cried, pointing at me. She looked at the male officer with wide, tear-filled eyes. I just came to get my clothes. I didn't want trouble. He dragged me inside by my hair. He threw a bowl at me, missed, then grabbed my arms and slammed them down. He said he would hurt me. Look at my arms. Look what he did. The lead officer looked at me with strong dislike. He had seen this kind of situation many times. A fearful and angry husband upset his wife, leaving their home broken and her deeply hurt. Turn around and put your hands on the wall. Now, the officer ordered, reaching for his handcuffs. Officer, I said, quietly but clearly, cutting through the noise in the room with calm control. Before you put the handcuffs on me, think carefully about one simple question. I told you to turn around, the officer shouted, stepping closer to me. If I had forced her into this house against her will, I said steadily, keeping eye contact, then why are there no wet footprints from the door to the kitchen? Why are the only footprints hers, running fast? And if I had hurt her, why is she the one out of breath? The officer paused, his eyes looking down at the dry floor behind me. He's lying, Julia screamed, panic rising in her voice. She needed quick action, not talking anymore. He's dangerous. He's trying to trick you. Arrest him. Get him out of my house. Be silent, Julia, I said firmly. My voice was calm but strong, making the room quiet. Even the officer stopped moving. I looked down at her, kneeling on the broken floor. My feelings were not angry, but cold and clear. You are truly pathetic, I said slowly and carefully, like a judge reading a sentence. For 18 years, I thought you were just proud and stubborn. But this week showed me you are much worse. You were unfaithful in a cheap motel. You got caught because you didn't turn off your phone. You tried to use your friends against me, but they left when they saw the truth. Then when the man you were with gave you up to save himself and you got punished for wrongdoings at work today, you came here. You wanted to be the victim. You lied. Stop! Stop! Julia cried, struggling against the officer. Don't believe him! He isn't right! I didn't pay attention to her. I looked back at the officer in charge. Slowly, I lowered my hands and reached toward the coffee table next to the sofa. Don't move your hands, the officer warned, putting his hand back near his baton. I'm just picking up an iPad, I said calmly. It's right here on the table. May I? The officer frowned but nodded shortly and tensely. I picked up the shiny silver tablet, tapped the screen, and unlocked it. I opened the cloud security app. Officers, this woman just broke the law, I said, turning the tablet toward the lead officer and handing it to him. 3 years ago, I put hidden 4K motion cameras in the hallway and kitchen. They send the videos straight to a safe cloud server. What you have here is the unedited, time-stamped video from the last 10 minutes, with clear sound. The female officer slowly stood up, leaving Julia on the floor, and came closer to look at the screen with her partner. I pressed play. The sound filled the quiet room. "I'm taking my house back," a woman shouted angrily. The officers watched the sharp footage. They saw Julia run into the house unharmed. They saw me standing calmly with my hands in my pockets. In silence, they watched Julia pick up a bowl and throw it down herself, then tear her own blouse. Then, the most shocking part. The camera showed Julia stepping back, biting her lip, and hitting her own forearms against the kitchen island, making sounds of pain on purpose. "I'm going to tell the police you forced me inside," Julia's voice hissed from the tablet. "You'll get arrested for attacking me. You'll get a court order. I'm taking this house today, and you'll pay for it." The video ended. The screen went dark. The silence in the room was deep and heavy. I looked down at Julia. The fake tears were gone. Her face was frozen in pure fear. Her mouth was open a little. Her eyes were wide, staring at the black screen like she was seeing something terrible. She had no other plan, no way to explain. The lie was over, and it had failed. The lead officer gave the tablet back to me. His jaw was tight, and his neck muscles stood out. He didn't look angry. He looked furious. The kind of anger only an officer feels when they realize someone used them to hurt an innocent person. Slowly, he turned and looked down at Julia. "Get up," the officer said. His voice was low and calm, but dangerous. Julia didn't move. She was stuck, unable to take in what had just happened. I just, she whispered, her voice shaking. "He changed the video. He's good with computers. He made it look like I did it. You have to believe me." "I said get up right now!" The officer shouted so loud that the windows shook. Julia crawled backward on her hands and knees, scared, until her back hit the kitchen cabinets. She held onto the edge of the counter and pulled herself up. Her legs were shaking, and barely able to hold her. The female officer stepped closer, her face full of anger and dislike. She took out a pair of heavy handcuffs from her belt. The sound of the metal closing echoed in the quiet kitchen. "Julia Adams," the officer said, as she grabbed Julia's right arm and turned it behind her back. "I am arresting you for wasting police time, making false evidence, and lying about domestic violence." "No!" Julia yelled, trying to pull her arm free. "No! You can't do this! I am the victim! I have nowhere to go! He kicked me out! He stole my money! He—" Click. The cold metal locked around her wrist. The officer grabbed Julia's other arm, the one with a dark bruise she had made herself, and held it tightly. Julia screamed, but the officer did not stop. Click. The handcuffs clicked shut on her wrist. Julia was trapped. The cold metal made her realize she had lost. She leaned against the counter and started to cry hard. Her tears mixed with her ruined makeup, and her face looked full of pain and shame. "You don't have to say anything," the lead officer said softly, leaning close. She gave Julia the usual police warning. "But if you don't say something when asked, it can hurt you later in court. Anything you say can be used as proof. Do you understand?" Julia looked at me through tears, begging. "Please," she cried. "Please stop this. I'm sorry. I'll sign the papers. I'll do whatever you want. Just tell them to let me go. I can't go to jail. Please, I'm your wife." I stood there holding the iPad, calm and still. I looked at her like she was a stranger. I spoke clearly and firmly, making sure she understood this was the end. "You are not my wife," I said coldly in the quiet room. "My wife died the moment she chose to be with someone else. You are just a person who broke into my house. You played a dangerous and cruel game, Julia, and you lost. I didn't put the handcuffs on you. You put the handcuffs on yourself the moment you called 999. Enjoy your night in a holding cell. I hear it's much colder than the leather seats of your Z4. The lead officer took her by the arm. "Let's go. Walk." They moved her forward. She stumbled over the broken pieces of the ceramic bowl she had thrown. Her shoes made loud, crunching sounds on the floor. She couldn't walk straight. The female officer had to support her under the arm to keep her from falling. They pulled her down the hallway, past the front door, and out into the cold rain. I followed them to the porch and stood under the awning. I watched as they pushed her head down and guided her into the back of the police car. She leaned against the window, her face pressed against the glass, looking out at the beautiful house she had given up after a month of mistakes and pride. The heavy door closed with a loud click. The lock snapped shut. The lead officer came back onto the porch. He took a notepad from his vest. "Sir, I am truly sorry for what you just went through," the officer said in a polite, serious voice. "Women who misuse the system like this make it much harder for real victims to get help. It's wrong." "Thank you for your professionalism, officer," I said calmly. "Do you need a copy of the cloud footage?" "Yes," the officer nodded. "I'll send you a secure email link so you can upload the file to the CPS portal. She will be held overnight without bail. Since she has no money, she will probably get a duty lawyer in the morning for court. Are you planning to claim money for the damaged property?" "I'll leave the criminal charges to the Crown," I said, looking at the police car waiting in the rain. "I think she has enough problems now. I just want her out of my life." "Understood, sir. We will contact you tomorrow." The officer turned, walked back to the car, and got into the driver's seat. The engine started, the blue lights flashed on the wet ground, and the car drove away into the dark, rainy night, taking the end of my old life with it. I stood on the porch a little longer, breathing in the cold, fresh air. Then I turned and went back inside. I closed the door and locked it. I walked to the kitchen, picked up a broom and dustpan, and quietly swept up the broken pieces of the bowl. The house was finally quiet, completely still. The trash had been taken out, and my calm peace stayed unbroken. The private arbitration room in the heart of London's financial district was plain and cold. The room was plain, with no paintings on the walls and no windows to look outside. A long, shiny oak table stood in the middle, surrounded by black leather chairs. The place was made to handle the end of rich marriages quietly, away from the public eye. Roger Adams sat on one side of the table. He wore a dark blue suit that cost more than most people earned in a month. He looked very confident. Next to him was his lawyer, a well-dressed man who typed steadily on his laptop. Across the table sat Roger's wife, Eleanor. She wore a neat charcoal blazer. She sat very straight, her face calm and unreadable. Beside her was her main lawyer, a silver-haired man named Thorne, who charged £2,000 an hour. At the end of the table sat a court reporter, ready with her machine. "Mr. Adams," Thorne said in a smooth, polite voice, "you know this meeting is legally binding. You are giving testimony under oath, and lying could have serious consequences under the law, correct?" "I know the law very well," Roger said, leaning back and crossing his legs. He looked at Eleanor with a bored, dismissive glance while adjusting his expensive watch. "Good," said Thorne, looking at a sheet of paper. "Let's talk about the financial matters. Your prenuptial agreement has a rule about being faithful and about not taking money or property from your marriage or businesses. You have given a sworn statement saying your relationship with your assistant, Julia, was only work-related until your suspension. You also promised you did not hide, move, or steal any money from Eleanor's company. Is that true?" "That's right," Roger replied confidently, without hesitation. "My suspension happened because an upset employee tried to threaten me. I ended the work contact, and she reacted badly. I haven't taken a single penny from the company except my normal pay and usual expenses. Any claims against me are lies." Eleanor stared at him without blinking. "Are you sure about that, Roger?" she asked quietly, her voice sharp and precise like a cutting tool. Roger laughed in disbelief. "Eleanor, come on. Stop this silly search for trouble. I know you're upset about the HR issue, but taking me to this arbitration and saying I stole money is just sad. I did not take your money." Thorne didn't look at Roger. He reached into his leather bag and pulled out a thick, heavy folder. It was marked with the red stamp of an outside financial audit company. He dropped it on the table with a firm sound. Roger's eyes quickly moved to the folder. A small, barely noticeable twitch appeared at the corner of his eye. "Mr. Adams," Thorne said, opening the folder. "3 days ago, my client started a full audit of your department. During this check, our team found a fake company listed under the logistics vendor budget. It's a company that only you have the right to approve. Roger stopped breathing. His confident look quickly faded, turning pale and sickly. He uncrossed his legs. "What is that?" Roger's lawyer asked, leaning forward. "We never got this paper during discovery." "You didn't get it because it comes from an ongoing internal company review," Thorne replied firmly, his voice growing louder. "But it's very important now, since your client just lied under oath. Let it be known that on the 14th of last month, Mr. Adams approved a fake payment of £40,000. He didn't pay a logistics company. He sent that money directly into the personal account of his assistant, Julia." Roger's lawyer looked at him. "Roger, what does he mean? Did you approve that payment?" Roger could not answer. His throat moved as if he wanted to swallow, but his mouth was dry. He looked at Eleanor. Eleanor finally smiled. It was a cold, hard smile. "You arrogant, foolish, useless man," Eleanor said, speaking clearly and carefully. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. "You sat in my house, drank my wine, and spent my family's money, all while taking from my company to buy a fancy car for a careless woman. You really thought you could hide it from me? You honestly believed I was just some rich housewife you could trick?" "Eleanor, wait," Roger said, his hands trembling as he held the table's edge. "You don't understand. The money was only a loan. I was going to return it." "Stop right there," Eleanor interrupted sharply. "Don't insult my intelligence by stuttering like a caught child. You didn't only break the trust between us, Roger. You broke the law with your company, too. You lied here today while under oath." "My client is ending this meeting," Roger's lawyer shouted, hurriedly closing his laptop and putting his papers away. He looked at Roger with clear disgust. "Don't speak again, Roger. You are in serious legal trouble." "Oh, he isn't going anywhere," Thorne said coldly, pushing a paper across the table. "Because this meeting is done. The prenuptial agreement was now in effect because of your lying under oath and fake documents. You will leave the Kensington house by midnight. You lose all your shares in the company. You will not get any money from me afterward." Roger was breathing very fast. Sweat ran down his forehead, soaking his expensive suit's collar. "You can't do this. I have rights. I built that department." "You built nothing," Eleanor said, standing up and looking down at him with clear disgust. "You are someone who took advantage of my family's work, and now you broke the law. My lawyers just gave all the proof to the Serious Fraud Office an hour ago. They are freezing every bank account linked to you right now." Roger's mouth opened wide. He looked shocked and scared. "The SFO? Eleanor, please don't call the police. I could go to prison." "Yes, you will," Eleanor said calmly. "You will lose everything. You will be known for this in the news, and you will not work in any company again. You thought you could blame that poor woman to save yourself, but you only made things worse." Eleanor grabbed her handbag, turned, and walked to the door. "Eleanor!" Roger shouted, standing up and knocking his chair over. "Don't do this! I have nothing! Nothing at all!" She didn't look back. She left the room, leaving Roger alone in silence, trapped by the mess he made of his own pride. Rain poured down hard on the cracked pavement of the busy street. Julia stood under the small, broken awning of a cheap legal aid office. She looked like a shadow. She had spent the night in a cold police cell before being let out on bail while they kept looking into the false report she had made. Her hair was oily and flat. Her clothes were dirty, and her makeup had run. She was shaking, holding a lukewarm cup of cheap tea she bought with the last money in her purse. She looked at her BMW Z4 parked on the street. It was the only thing she had left. It was her safe place. It was the last piece of the life she thought she should have. The small office door opened. A tired-looking lawyer named Davies stepped out. He was holding a batch of sealed envelopes. He didn't seem kind. Instead, he looked very tired and annoyed. "Julia," Davies said, rubbing his forehead with a sigh, "I just got off the phone with the Crown Prosecution Service about what you did at your husband's house last night. While I was talking with them, they found something else on your file, something much worse." Julia's tired eyes opened wide in fear. "Worse? How could it be worse? I'm homeless. My husband locked me out and filmed it. I'm already in trouble for lying in court." "You're in more trouble. You're facing charges for tax evasion and fraud," Davies said sharply, pushing a thick envelope into her hands. Julia caught the cup of tea she almost dropped as she took the envelope. What? No, that's Roger. Roger was suspended for fraud. I told HR he tricked me. HR doesn't care, and neither does the tax office, Davies said, losing all patience. The tax office started a big audit on your personal money. Your husband's lawyer gave a huge file to Eleanor Adams, who gave it to the authorities. They have the records, Julia. They have the bank details. You took £40,000 from stolen company funds and never told anyone about it. I didn't know it was stolen, Julia cried, her voice breaking on the empty street. He said it was a bonus. I spent it on the car. I didn't hide the money. Not knowing is not a defense for tax crimes, Davies said, loud, stepping closer. Julia pressed herself against the wall. Do you think the tax office cares about your excuses? They see £40,000 going into your account, then a fancy car bought 3 days later. Your bank accounts are frozen as of 10 minutes ago. Your credit is ruined. Frozen? Julia gasped, her chest tightening like she couldn't breathe. I've got only £40 left. How will I buy food? How will I pay you for help? You won't pay me. I'm dropping you as a client, Davies said coldly. I handle small cases like theft and family fights. I don't deal with big tax fraud and major investigations. You're a lost cause, Julia. You owe the tax office the $40,000 plus big fines and interest. You're in huge debt, and you have no way to pay. Before Julia could say anything, a loud grinding sound came down the street. A big yellow tow truck stopped by the curb, its flashing lights cutting through the dusk. A man in a bright jacket got out without looking at Julia. He went straight to her Z4, hooked a strong chain under it, and started pulling the car up with a machine. Hey! Julia shouted, dropping her tea onto the pavement. The cold liquid soaked her ankles as she ran toward the truck. What are you doing? Get away from my car! That's my car! Not anymore, the tow truck driver said gruffly. He pulled out a paper from his pocket and showed it to her. This is a government order. They said to take the car to pay off your unpaid taxes. Step back, or I'll call the police for stopping me. No, you can't take it, Julia cried, pressing herself against the driver's side door of the BMW. She held onto the side mirror tightly as the truck's winch lifted the car's front wheels off the ground. My clothes are in the trunk. My bags are there. It's all I have left. Please, let me get my things. The car goes as is. Talk to the tax office about this, the driver said coldly. He moved to the control panel and pulled a lever. The winch made a loud groan. The Z4 was pulled hard up onto the flatbed of the truck. Julia fell backward, landing hard on her hands and knees in a dirty, cold puddle. Her clothes were wet through and her skin was scraped and stinging. She stayed there, watching as the truck tied down her car, her beautiful car that held every piece of clothing and every belonging she owned. Then it drove away down the street, disappearing into the heavy rain. She was broke. She had serious problems with the law. She had no clothes, no car, no friends, no partner, and no home. She had nothing but the clothes on her back and £40 in her pocket. You stupid, careless fool, Julia whispered to herself, looking at the empty space on the curb where her car had been. For the first time ever, she faced the truth. There was no one else to blame. There was no excuse. She had ruined her own life. 2 weeks later, the air in David Sterling's office was cool with air conditioning and smelled of leather and polished wood. I sat on one side of the big glass table, wearing a clean white shirt and a dark jacket. Across from me was Julia. She looked very different. She seemed to have aged 10 years in just 2 weeks. Her face was pale and thin, with sharp cheekbones. Her strawberry blonde hair, once tidy and neat, was now tied back in a messy knot. She wore a cheap gray tracksuit clearly bought from a discount store. She looked completely worn down. Her eyes stayed fixed on the table and did not meet mine. Sitting next to her was a young lawyer from legal aid, looking nervous and unsure. Sterling pushed a thick pile of papers across the glass table. Let's keep this very short, he said, his voice cold and flat. These are the final divorce papers. They show the truth about your current legal and money problems, Julia. You are being looked at by Child Protection Services for filing a false police report against my client, and the tax office is checking you for unpaid taxes. Julia shivered at the words, hugging her stomach like she was hurting inside. My client has no legal duty to help you, Sterling went on without stopping, but he is willing to make one last final deal. Julia's legal advisor cleared their throat nervously. My client has no money left, Mr. Sterling. She owns nothing. We are asking for a fair part of the savings you both had and some of the house's value so she can afford a place to live while she deals with these charges. You are asking for something impossible and you won't get it, I said quietly. But my voice filled the room. Julia finally looked up at me. Her eyes were full of sad, weak tears. You will not get any money from me, Julia, I said, leaning forward with my arms on the table. You will not get any part of the house. You will not touch my pension. You will get no support. Every shared asset we had is going completely to me. You can't leave me with nothing, Julia whispered, her voice breaking, tears running down her thin cheeks. I have a bad record now. I can't find a job. I live in a shelter. Please, I made a bad choice. I know I hurt you, but you can't just leave me like this. We were married for 18 years. Don't use our marriage to ask for money, I said sharply, my voice cold and hard. You threw all those years away the moment you made your choices. You even bragged to your friends about how weak I was. You stole company money to buy a fancy car, and then you broke into my house, hurt yourself, and tried to get me in trouble. Julia closed her eyes and started crying loudly, covering her face with her hands. You tried to ruin my life because you were angry about getting caught, I said, speaking the full, harsh truth. You are selfish and dangerous. You owe the government over £100,000. You maxed out your credit cards. That debt is yours alone. You will take on all your financial responsibilities, and you will give up any claim to my belongings. And if she refuses to sign? The legal aid lawyer asked softly, trying to find a way to help. If she refuses, I said, looking coldly at the lawyer, then I will send the full security camera footage to the authorities as proof of her lies. I will take her to court for emotional harm and damage to property. I will keep her caught up in legal battles for years, making sure any help she gets is overwhelmed, and she faces the toughest punishment for making a false report. But if she signs this paper now, I will walk away. I will stop helping the police with the assault case, and she will only deal with her tax problems. I looked back at Julia. She was shaking hard, staring at the pen on the papers. This is your only way out, I said, my voice low and calm. You sign away the house. You give up the savings. You accept your debt. You leave this room and never contact me again, or I will trap you in the legal system so deep you won't get free for a long time. The choice is yours. Julia looked at the papers. She glanced at her lawyer, who slowly nodded without words. There was no fight left, no hope. She was trapped by her own lies. Her hand trembled as she reached for the pen. She did not read the papers. She flipped to the last page, put the pen down on the line, and signed. Her handwriting was quick and uneven. She pushed the papers back across the table. It's done, Julia said, crying quietly, her head down in defeat. You took everything. You won. I didn't take anything, I said softly, standing up and buttoning my jacket. You gave it all away. I hope your life is better, Julia. I didn't wait for her to leave. I turned and walked out, the heavy wooden door closing behind me, cutting ties with the woman I once knew. 2 years later. Dark clouds hung low over a worn-out strip mall on the edge of the city. A cold drizzle made the cracked sidewalks wet, reflecting the cheap neon lights of discount stores. Julia pushed open the heavy glass door of a small, low-cost pharmacy. She wore a thin, rough blue smock over a faded gray sweater. A plastic name tag that said Julia, Cashier, was pinned unevenly to her chest. She dragged 2 heavy black bags filled with cardboard and trash toward the dumpsters in the back alley. She looked nothing like the woman she had been 2 years before. The stress from the tax problems and the suspended sentence had worn her down. Her hair was dull and tied back with a cheap band, showing gray streaks too early for her age. Her face looked tired and full of lines. Her hands were rough and red from cleaning floors, and her nails were chipped with no polish. She lived in a small, moldy, one-bedroom apartment above a kebab shop. A large part of her low paycheck was taken by the tax office every month to pay off the huge debt she owed. She would be paying it for the rest of her life. She couldn't get a corporate job because of her criminal record for fraud. Trash, Julia whispered softly, her voice tired and bitter as she threw the bags into the dumpster. Every single day. Trash. Look at me. Look at my life. I used to be an executive. I drove a BMW. I had a house. I had everything. Now I'm picking up trash for minimum wage. She wiped the cold rain from her forehead and shook with tiredness. As she turned to go back to the pharmacy, she heard the loud noise of a jackhammer breaking the street. A group of city workers was digging to fix a broken water pipe. Julia looked at them. One man wore a bright yellow vest, dirty and stained. He held a heavy shovel, digging out wet mud. He looked old. His shoulders were bent, his face covered in dirt, and his body thick and moving slowly from poor food and tiredness. The man stopped, resting on his shovel, and wiped sweat from his eyes. He looked toward the alleyway. Julia froze. Her breath caught. It was Roger. He looked broken. Without his expensive suits, his office, and his rich wife, he was now just an older man doing hard work to get by after his time in prison for fraud. Eleanor had ruined him completely. She had taken everything he had, made sure he could never work in finance again, and left him to struggle. Roger looked at Julia. Julia looked at Roger. For a long, silent moment, time seemed to stop. There was no love, no sadness or hope between the two who once shared more than just moments together. There was only pure dislike. Roger's lip lifted in a grim sneer. He looked at her cheap blue coat, her messy hair, and tired face, seeing the same lost person in her that he saw when he looked in the mirror every morning. Julia felt sick. She almost threw up on the street. She hated him. She hated him with all her heart, but even more, she hated herself. She had given up a safe, loving marriage, a nice home, and a well-planned life for a man who was now working outside in the rain. Neither of them spoke. The silence was the hardest kind of punishment. Roger looked away, spit into the mud, and pushed his shovel back into the wet earth. Julia turned around, hugged herself tightly against the cold, and walked back into the dull, bright-lit aisle of the cheap pharmacy. She felt like a ghost living in her own broken life, stuck in the lonely place she had built with her own choices. Inside, the kitchen was warm and smelled like roasted garlic, rosemary, and a rich, well-cooked steak. I stood at the kitchen counter, wearing a thick, soft sweater. I held a pair of metal tongs, carefully turning the high-quality steak in the skillet, brushing it with melted butter. Soft jazz music played from a speaker on the counter, filling the room with a calm and smooth sound. The house was completely changed. It didn't look like the house Julia used to live in. I had removed the cold granite counters and put in warm wooden ones. The walls were now painted a deep, relaxing gray. Every little sign of her, every piece of furniture she had picked, every picture frame, every memory had been removed and replaced. I did not feel haunted. I was not angry. I was calm and at peace. "Sit," I said quietly. A big, beautiful golden retriever named Barnaby sat right away on the wooden floor by the stove. His tail tapped softly on the floor. He looked up at me with warm, loving eyes, waiting. "Good boy," I said gently, slicing a small, well-cooked piece of steak. I blew on it to cool it down and tossed it to him. He caught it easily and swallowed it happily, then rested his heavy head on my bare feet. I moved the steak to a wooden board to rest. Then I went to the liquor cabinet and poured 2 fingers of old, expensive bourbon into a thick glass. I took a slow sip. The warm drink slid down my throat, warming my chest. "You know Barnaby," I said softly to the quiet room, looking out the big glass window at the tidy garden behind the house. "People often think that revenge has to be loud. They think it should be full of noise and anger. They think you have to scream and break things and hurt yourself just to make your point." I walked back to the counter and picked up a sharp knife to cut the steak. "But that's exactly what the ones who are wrong want," I said, speaking my thoughts into the still room. "They want you to lose control. They want you to turn into the villain so they can make their betrayal seem right. They want chaos, because chaos hides what really happened." I put the perfectly cooked meat slices on a warm plate. "The truth is," I said, feeling calm and steady all over, "the best weapon you have against a liar is the truth, clear and simple, without any anger. You don't have to fight back or break them. You just need to stand firm, step aside, and let them cause their own downfall." I sat at the head of the dining table. The house was safe. My money was all still there. My mind was clear, sharp, and free from the heavy pain of lies. I looked at the glass of bourbon, watching the light shine through the amber liquid. I thought about the wild trouble Julia and Roger had brought into this home 2 years ago, and how easily it had been wiped away by quiet, steady strength. I lifted my glass to the empty room, giving a silent toast to pure freedom. I took a bite of the steak. It was just right. I smiled, a smile that reached my eyes with a deep, lasting feeling of winning. I didn't need to shout or fight. I had simply done what was right, and the quiet in my home was the best reward I could ever want. Real peace doesn't come from lowering yourself to the level of those who hurt us, but from keeping your own limits and letting the clear truth show itself. When you keep your honesty in the face of lies, the bad parts of your life will cause their own problems and disappear, leaving you free to start again. In the end, walking away with your honor and a calm mind is the strongest kind of victory. What do you think about how the main character handled this deep betrayal? Do you believe Julia and Roger got what was coming to them? We would love to hear what you think about these characters in the comments below. Thank you for watching and spending your time with us today. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the Infidelity Director channel for more powerful stories about truth, consequences, and justice.